Voter disenfranchisement. This trick could keep you from voting in 2020. Check it out, ding the bell, share your comments, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Last week, I got my advanced copies of The Hidden History of the War on Voting. I had argued that the title should be The Republican War on Voting because there is no Democratic war on voting, but my publisher wanted it to be a little less partisan. So, although most of the book is just like, it's insanely infuriating, and you know, it documents the Republican war on voting that's been going on largely since the Nixon administration, but really went on steroids in 2000 with the George W. Bush campaign. And then after 2002, I think it was, the Help America Vote Act, which mandated that states keep their lists clean, their voter rolls. And, you know, it's a problem for states, and it's not a problem. You know, like, you know, I've before we moved back here to Portland, we were in Washington, D.C. I voted in D.C. I registered to vote and voted there. Before we were in D.C., I was in Oregon. I registered to vote here. Before I was in Oregon, I was in Vermont, and I registered to vote there. Before that, it was Georgia. Before that, it was New Hampshire. Before that, it was Michigan. And every time I moved, I'd register to vote in the new state, but I never let the old state know that I was no longer there. Now, what this means is that there are states that have more registered, or there were prior to 2002, states that had more registered voters than they had citizens, because they, you know, but it wasn't a problem. I mean, it's not like, even though I was still registered to vote in D.C. and I moved to Oregon, that I was going to, you know, file an absentee ballot in D.C. I mean, people just don't do that. Nobody wants to go to jail for that, and you can go to jail for that. It just literally doesn't happen. I mean, you know, maybe once or twice a year, you know, I mean, literally 1 or 2 people a year get busted for voting in 2 states. But it's so rare. So it was a non-problem. But with the Help America Vote Act, the Republicans decided to fix this problem, and they said, you know, the states have to clean up all those people on their rolls who don't live there anymore. Why? Well, because maybe they'll try to vote there. Now, you know, I get cleaning up the rolls. Maybe if somebody hasn't voted in 15 years, you know, but somebody went to the trouble of registering to vote, and it's not a small thing. Registering to vote in many states is a very difficult thing. But with this, by being allowed to do this, with the Help America Vote Act of 2005, or 2002, whenever it was, maybe it was 2003, it was supposed to fix the problems of Florida. Remember that, hanging chads and all that? Well, we're gonna spend they allocated $5 billion to give to the states to buy voting machines from Wally Odell, with Diebold, who said, I want to deliver Ohio to the Republicans in 2004. And ES&S, which was started by the Yarosevich brothers, who were end-time millennialists, not millennials, but millennialists, as in end-of-time Christian believers that these were the last days. That's who was running these 2 voting machine companies. So anyhow, but the purges, I think, are the big thing. And Wisconsin, you know, a circuit court judge said it's okay if they remove 230,000 people from their voting rolls this year. Donald Trump, remember, won that state by 23,000 votes. Georgia, Brian Kemp, now the governor, wanted to remove you'll recall, he removed over 1 million people just in the 2 years before he challenged Stacey Abrams, 2-to-1 in black areas. And they do it now by a process called caging, which the Republican Party was busted for doing back in the 70s and had a court order for almost 30 years preventing them from doing this. And then it got legalized with the Help America Vote Act, and the Supreme Court last year, or the year before last, 2017, ruled that Ohio, which was doing this, it was just fine. Caging is where the state, or it used to be the Republican Party, would mail you a postcard saying, you know, please mail back this card proving that you are still at this address and that you still want to be registered as a voter. Now, the cards were designed to look like junk mail. Most people just threw them away. And then, I mean, this is what William Rehnquist used to do. He would stand in line in Arizona back in the 60s, big, tall, burly guy, 6'2", huge guy, actually. He'd stand in line, and as Hispanic and Native American voters would come up, He would ask them their names. He'd look at his list and he'd say, "Oh, you didn't return the card. You're not," and stuff like that. This is so they got blocked from doing this. But anyhow, they're doing it again. And Georgia wanted to remove 300,000 people from the polls. And the court said, you can remove 100,000. And, again, largely in black areas. Just prior to from the 2016 election until today, that was 3 years ago, until today, at least 17 million people have been removed from voting rolls nationwide. I mean, this is insane. The Voting Rights Act used to make this illegal, but not anymore.